My name is Celeste Moreau. I'm 29 years old. When I was 7 years old, my foster mother sat me down at the kitchen table and explained very clearly that I was a temporary arrangement. That the state was paying for me. That love in this house was something you earned by being useful and quiet and not causing problems. I spent 11 years in that house being useful and quiet and not causing problems. The day I turned 18, she handed me a garbage bag with my belongings in it and told me the arrangement was over. I had nowhere to go. No family. No savings. No plan. I stood on the sidewalk with a black garbage bag and $47 in my pocket, and I understood, completely and entirely, what it meant to be nobody's child. What I did not know, what I could not have known, was that someone had been watching. Someone had been keeping track. Someone had been waiting until I was old enough to make my own choices. And 3 weeks after my 29th birthday, a letter arrived. It was from an attorney in Lyon, France. It contained a document I had to read 4 times before I believed it. And when I finally understood what it said, I sat on my apartment floor and cried for the first time in 11 years. Not from sadness. From something I had not allowed myself to feel since I was 7 years old, and someone explained to me that temporary arrangements did not include the right to be loved. I'm going to tell you everything. If you're watching, subscribe and tell me in the comments where you are and whether you've ever been told you didn't belong somewhere you needed to belong. This is the whole story. My name before the foster system was Celeste Durand. I was born in Marseille, France, on March 3, 1996. My mother, Sylvie Durand, was 21 when she had me. She was the daughter of a prominent family in Lyon. Old money, the kind that comes with expectations and silences and closed doors. She had come to Marseille for university, which her family considered the first of her mistakes. Meeting my father was the second. Having me was the third. My father was a Moroccan musician named Karim. He played oud in a small venue near the port. He had warm eyes and a laugh that filled rooms. He also had a wife in Casablanca he had not mentioned to my mother. When she discovered this, she was 5 months pregnant. When I was born, she was alone. Sylvie's family did not come. Her mother, my grandmother, Marguerite Durand, sent a letter. 1 page. It told Sylvie that her choices had consequences, that the family could not be seen to endorse what she had done, that when she was ready to return to Lyon without the child, there would be a conversation about forgiveness. Without the child. My mother did not return to Lyon without me. She tried, for 7 years, to make a life in Marseille. She cleaned hotels. She took night shifts at a bakery. She moved us 4 times when she couldn't cover rent. She was exhausted in a way that went all the way down. I remember her hands. They were always slightly rough. I remember her perfume, something floral that she bought at a pharmacy because it was all she could afford, but she wore it anyway because she had been raised to believe women should smell like something lovely. I remember the morning she left. I was 7. She woke me before school, dressed me carefully in my nicest things, brushed my hair. She made me toast with jam, the good jam, the kind she saved for special occasions. She drove me to school herself, which she rarely did. At the gate, she held my face in her hands the way I later understood mothers do when they are memorizing something. "You are the best thing I ever did," she said. "Don't let anyone tell you differently." She kissed my forehead. She put me through the gate. She did not pick me up that afternoon. The school called. Then the social services office. Then the emergency foster placement. I never saw Sylvie again. I learned, years later, that she had checked herself into a psychiatric facility that same afternoon. A breakdown, the records said. She remained there for 3 years. When she was released, she did not seek custody. I was told she had chosen not to. For a long time, I believed she had abandoned me the way everyone seemed to abandon me. I was wrong about that. But I didn't find out until the letter came. The foster family's name was Brannigan. Neil and Carol Brannigan, a couple in their late 40s who had been fostering children for 6 years when I arrived. They were not cruel in obvious ways. There was food. There was a bedroom I shared with 2 other girls. There were rules, clearly posted on the refrigerator, which were applied with the consistency of people who ran their household like a small administrative department. Carol explained the arrangement the first week. The state provided a stipend. The rules were simple: be helpful, be quiet, attend school, do not cause drama. Children who caused drama got moved. I did not want to be moved, so I was not dramatic. I loaded the dishwasher. I helped with laundry. I stayed out of arguments. I got good grades because school was the one place where effort produced predictable results, and I found that profoundly comforting. I did not make close friends because close friends asked questions about home, and I had learned that questions about home led to complicated answers that made people uncomfortable. I read constantly. The library was 2 blocks from school, and the librarian, a woman named Patricia, let me stay until closing and never asked why I didn't want to go home. I read everything: fiction, history, science, biography. I read the way some people eat when they haven't had enough, urgently, gratefully, always aware that it might be taken away. Patricia noticed. She started setting books aside for me. She wrote small notes on post-it notes tucked inside the front covers, things she thought I might find interesting about the author, or a connection to another book, or just this one changed me, I think it might do something for you too. She was the first person in 11 years who consistently saw me. I graduated high school at 17 with the highest GPA in my class. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I applied for university. On the morning of my 18th birthday, Carol handed me a black garbage bag and said the state arrangement was ending. There was a transitional housing program through the county she had already called. Someone would meet me there. I said thank you. I meant it without irony, which is perhaps the strangest thing about that morning. She told me she had been keeping the flowers going, but she had not thought Marguerite would have wanted them to be in bloom, and I was granddaughter for the margin. She stood on the sidewalk with $47 and a garbage bag, and Marguerite had apparently told people about me in her final years. Had said to anyone who asked that she had a granddaughter at a school gate while she was waiting until the time was right. I am not nobody. Henri unlocked the front door and gave me the key and stepped back. University was scholarships and work study, the house smelled like roommates in a 2-bedroom apartment, and ramen and secondhand textbooks, something more expensive, the most freedom I had ever experienced. I studied social work immediately, not to perform a gesture of my mother, because I genuinely wanted to understand the systems that had moved me around like inventory. Then I walked and because I thought understanding them might let me help someone navigate them better than I had. I graduated with honors. 2,000 I got a position at a non-profit. Henri had mentioned an inventory, aging, but I had not yet processed it. I was good at a reading chair by the window with a small table and a lamp and a worn patch on the armrest where someone had rested their arm entirely mine. On the table beside the chair was a book. I adopted a cat named Louis who was indifferent to me in the way that cats are. She had been reading it, which I found restful after years of performing for people's approval. Henri, perhaps, I was not unhappy, had left it as it was. I want to be clear about that. I picked it up. I had built it was a novel I had read in university. And I knew how to value one of the ones Patricia the librarian but there was a part aside for me, a specific quiet part. I had still carried the weight of not belonging anywhere. I don't know of having no one to call on a bad night who was obligated by blood or history to answer. In the bedroom, on the writing desk, at the fundamental level, had told me there would be an envelope with my name on it. That was the part the letter touched. Inside was a photograph. Thursday, Sylvie, in April. Young. Maybe I 19 or 20, open it laughing at something outside the frame. Foreign postmark. She looked heavy like cream me. Envelope. The shape of the face. I didn't the recognize. Way she held her head. I set it on the kitchen counter. I had not seen a photograph and made of her dinner since I was 7 years old. Ignore me from the windowsill. I had seen only at 9 o'clock. I picked it up and opened it, which had not come. The letter was in French and English both. Behind the photograph was a letter. It was from a legal firm in Lyon called Beaumont and Associates. The attorney's name was Henri Beaumont. This letter, I will not describe in detail, was except to say that Sylvie was alive, that the firm had been engaged by the estate for 11 years. Marguerite Durand. She had returned when Marguerite's health declined, France, and they had that Marguerite Durand had died 6 weeks prior at the age of 84. That Sylvie had wanted to reach out for years, but the woman who had sent my mother a one-page letter about consequences had convinced her and not returning with the child come first. I had known that Sylvie was afraid. I had never expected was
hear
waiting
from anyone
that there was a
connected to
phone
her.
number
I
at the
kept
bottom.
reading.
I sat
The
at
letter
that
explained
writing
that
desk for a long
Marguerite
time.
Durand had,
Then
in
I
the
took
final
out my
decade of her
phone.
life,
I
undertaken
dialed.
what the letter
It
called a
rang
process
3
of accounting.
times.
That
When
she
she
had
answered,
spent 10
she
years
did not say
attempting to
hello.
locate me.
She said
That
my
she had
name,
engaged
just my
private
name, in a voice I
investigators.
had not heard
That she
since I
had
was 7
5
years
ago,
old,
and she
found
had
said I was the
confirmed
best
my
thing she
identity,
ever did, confirmed
I
my
said,
situation,
"It's me,"
confirmed that I was
and that
alive
was enough
and building
to
a
start.
life in a city
What
she had
happened
never
next
visited.
is not a simple
She had
story,
not
and I will
contacted
not
me.
pretend it
The
is.
letter explained
Sylvie and I
why.
met in person
She had
4
wanted me
days
to be an
after that
adult
phone call.
before she reached
A
out.
cafe 2
She had
streets
wanted
from the
me
house.
to have the chance
She
to build
was
a life that
54
was
years
entirely
old.
my own
She looked
before
like
she
photographs
introduced the
of herself
complication.
filtered through time.
She had been afraid.
The same
The
structure,
letter used
the
that
same
word
way
directly,
of holding her head,
which I found
but
remarkable
marked by
in
every legal
everything that had
document.
passed.
That contact
talked
from her
for
might
4
disrupt
hours.
something fragile
I asked
in a
her
way
the
that could
hard
not be
questions.
undone.
She
She
had
answered
watched
them
from a
without
distance for 5
deflecting.
years.
She told
The
me
letter
about the
contained,
psychiatric
at this
breakdown,
point,
an
severe
attachment,
depression that had
a
been
personal
building
letter,
for years, and had
handwritten
finally
in
collapsed
French
under its
from
own weight.
Marguerite herself.
She told me
I
about
will
the
tell
years
you
of
what it
treatment,
said,
though
the
not
slow
in her
rebuilding,
exact words,
the guilt
those
that had been
feel
a
like
physical
mine
presence
to keep
in her life
She
every
wrote
single
that
day
she had
since
been
she walked
wrong.
away from that
She
school
used
gate.
that word
She
without
told me she had
qualification.
driven past
Wrong.
my foster home
About
once,
Sylvie.
years after,
About
that she
Kareem.
had sat in the
About
car
the
for an
definition
hour not
of
going
consequences.
in. Why didn't
About
you?
what it meant to
I
protect a
asked.
family's
Because
reputation
I was
versus
afraid
what
you'd
it
be
meant to
fine
protect a
without me,
family's people.
she said.
She wrote
And
that
I
after
was
Sylvie's
afraid you
breakdown,
wouldn't be.
which Marguerite
I
had
didn't
learned
know
about 3
which
months
was after
worse
it happened
to find out
from a social worker
I
who
thought
had tracked
about
her
that
down
for a long
She had
time.
understood for the
I
first
was
time what her
fine,
one-page
I
letter
said,
had actually
but not
cost.
because of
that the social
anything
worker
they
had
gave
asked
me.
her to come
In
for custody
spite
of
of
me,
it,
a
she
7-year-old
covered
child
her
with
face.
no one.
I
That
know,
she had
she
said
said.
no.
I
That
know.
she had said no
I did
because
not
she was
tell her
afraid
I
of what the
forgave her
neighbors
that
would
day,
say, and
because
afraid
I
of how
didn't
to
know
explain
yet,
it if
and
I
afraid
did.
of something
I
she could
told
not
her
even
I
name
was
clearly.
willing to find
She
out.
wrote that she had
She
been
said
thinking
that was
about
more
that
than
no
she had
every
any
single
right to
day
hope
for
for.
22 years.
We had lunch together
She wrote
the
that
next
she had
day,
looked at photographs
and the
of me.
day after
Photographs the
I
investigators
stayed in
had
Lyon
provided
for 3
me
weeks.
at various ages.
I met Colette,
crossing
the
streets,
neighbor,
leaving
who had
buildings,
kept the flowers
carrying
going,
books,
and
she
that
was
she had
70 and
recognized
fierce
herself
and had
in my
known
posture.
Marguerite for 40
in the
years
way
and
I
told me
held
stories
my
about
head,
her.
in
The way
something
she
she
walked,
couldn't name
the books
but
she loved,
couldn't deny.
the argument she
She
had
wrote
every
that
spring
she
at
had
the
no
bakery
right
down
to
the street
ask for
about the
anything,
correct way to
that
make a
what she
particular
was
pastry.
doing was not
She
about
told me
asking,
something I have
that
thought
it was about
everyday
making right
since.
what she could
Your
make
grandmother
right while
talked
she
about
still
you
had
for
the
5
chance.
years.
She
Colette
left
said.
me her house.
She kept a photograph
not
of you
a
on her
small
desk.
thing.
One her
house in
investigators
Lyon,
had taken.
a 4-bedroom
crossing a
property
street
in the
near
first
your
arrondissement,
office, carrying
fully
too
owned,
many books,
appraised at approximately
she said, "That's her.
480,000
She
euros.
carries too many
Her
books,
personal library,
just like I always
which was
did.
substantial,
Like the women
her
in
savings,
our family,
approximately
always do.
67,000
I thought
euros
about
after
Patricia, the
estate
librarian.
costs. Her
About
jewelry,
years of
including
staying
a ring
until
that had
closing.
belonged to her own
About the
grandmother.
canvas bag of
My
books I had taken
great-great-grandmother,
when I left
a
the
woman from a
Brannigans
village
with my
in the
garbage
Auvergne,
bag of
whose
belongings.
name was also
She
Celeste.
was right.
My name,
I said.
I was
She said
named,
she
it
didn't
turned
deserve
out,
to know
after
you,
a woman
Colette
who had
said.
died 40
But she
years
said she
before
was
I was
glad
born.
you existed.
Sylvie had
Every
given
day
me that
she
name.
was glad.
She had
I
carried
did not
something
sell
forward,
the house,
even when
I know
everything
some
else was
people
falling
would
away.
have.
I
It
sat
would have
on my
been the
apartment
rational
floor for a long
financial
time.
decision.
Louis came and sat on my
€480,000
feet,
is
which was the
life-changing
closest
money
he
in a
ever
way
came
that a
to
house you
comfort.
have never lived
I
in may
cried,
not be.
fully,
But I walked through
without
those rooms
managing
every
it.
day for 3
The
weeks,
kind of
and I
crying
thought
that
about
comes
Marguerite
when
sitting
something
in
that
that
has been
reading
held
chair for
very
decades,
tightly for a
alone
very
with
long
her
time
accounting.
is finally
I
allowed
thought
to
about
loosen.
Sylvie at
I
19
was not
making her
nobody.
mistakes in
I had
good
never
faith.
been nobody.
I thought about Kareem,
I just
who I will
hadn't
likely
known
never
where the
meet,
evidence
playing
was kept.
oud near the port
I
with
flew
warm
to Lyon
eyes and a
6
complicated
weeks later.
life.
Henri
I thought about a
Beaumont
woman
met me
named
at the
Celeste
airport,
who died
a
40
man in
years
his
before I
60s,
was born, and
silver-haired,
gave me her name
with a
through
careful
her kindness
kindness
of
someone
stubbornness.
who has delivered
I thought
difficult
about
news
Patricia
many
the
times
librarian
and learned
and
to
her
do it
post-it post-it notes. He drove
About
me
the book
to the house
open at
himself.
page 73
I will not
on
tell you
Marguerite's
I was
side
prepared
table.
for it.
About
Because
Louis
I was
ignoring
not.
me from the
It was a
windowsill
5-story
in my
townhouse
apartment,
on a cobblestone
and I
street
thought about
with
window
window
boxes
boxes
full
full
of
of
late
late
spring
spring
flowers,
flowers,
and saying
something
the arrangement
Marguerite
was
had
over.
apparently
I
maintained
do not
until the
hate
last year of her
Carol
life,
Brannigan.
when a neighbor
She
had
was a
taken over the
person
task.
operating within a
Henri
system
told me
that
the
had
neighbor's
taught her
name
a
was
specific
Colette.
definition of what children in her care deserved.
He told me she had been keeping the flowers going because she thought Marguerite would have wanted them to be in bloom when the granddaughter arrived. She knew about me. The neighbors knew about me. Marguerite had apparently told people about me in her final years. Had said, to anyone who asked, that she had a granddaughter in America. That she was waiting until the time was right. Henri unlocked the front door and gave me the key and stepped back. I walked in alone. The house smelled like old books and something floral, not pharmacy perfume, something more expensive, but in the same spirit. Something that reminded me immediately and without warning of my mother. I stood in the entrance hall for a full minute, just breathing. Then I walked through every room. The library was the third door on the left. Floor-to-ceiling shelves. 2,000 books at least. Henri had mentioned an inventory, but I had not yet processed it. A reading chair by the window with a small table and a lamp and a worn patch on the armrest where someone had rested their arm for decades. On the table beside the chair was a book, marked with a ribbon at page 73. She had been reading it when she died, or close to. Someone, Henri, perhaps, or Colette, had left it as it was. I picked it up. It was a novel I had read in university. One of the ones Patricia the librarian had set aside for me with a post-it note. I had loved it enormously. I don't know if that was coincidence. I choose to believe it was not. In the bedroom, on the writing desk, Henri had told me there would be an envelope with my name on it. There was. Inside was a photograph. Sylvie, young, maybe 19 or 20, laughing at something outside the frame. She looked like me. The shape of the face, the way she held her head. I had not seen a photograph of her since I was 7 years old, and even then I had seen only the few we had in our small apartment, which had not come with me when the social workers came. Behind the photograph was a letter from Sylvie. I had not known this was coming. Henri had not told me. This letter I will not describe in detail except to say that Sylvie was alive. That she had been in Lyon for 11 years. She had returned when Marguerite's health declined, and they had, slowly and imperfectly, repaired something between them. That Sylvie had wanted to reach out for years but had been afraid I would not want to hear from her. That Marguerite had convinced her to let the estate letter come first. That Sylvie was afraid. That she was waiting. That there was a phone number at the bottom. I sat at that writing desk for a long time. Then I took out my phone. I dialed. It rang 3 times. When she answered, she did not say hello. She said my name. Just my name, in a voice I had not heard since I was 7 years old, and she had said I was the best thing she ever did. I said, "It's me." And that was enough to start. What happened next is not a simple story, and I will not pretend it is. Sylvie and I met in person 4 days after that phone call. A café 2 streets from the house. She was 54 years old. She looked like photographs of herself filtered through time. The same structure, the same way of holding her head, but marked by everything that had passed. We talked for 4 hours. I asked her the hard questions. She answered them without deflecting. She told me about the psychiatric breakdown, severe depression that had been building for years and had finally collapsed under its own weight. She told me about the years of treatment, the slow rebuilding, the guilt that had been a physical presence in her life every single day since she walked away from that school gate. She told me she had driven past my foster home once, years after. That she had sat in the car for an hour not going in. "Why didn't you?" I asked. "Because I was afraid you'd be fine without me," she said. "And I was afraid you wouldn't be. I didn't know which was worse to find out." I thought about that for a long time. "I was fine," I said. "But not because of anything they gave me. In spite of it." She covered her face. "I know," she said. "I know." I did not tell her I forgave her that day, because I didn't know yet if I did. I told her I was willing to find out. She said that was more than she had any right to hope for. We had lunch together the next day. And the day after that. I stayed in Lyon for 3 weeks. I met Colette, the neighbor, who had kept the flowers going. She was 70 and fierce and had known Marguerite for 40 years and told me stories about her. The way she walked, the books she loved, the argument she had every spring with the bakery down the street about the correct way to make a particular pastry. She told me something I have thought about every day since. "Your grandmother talked about you for 5 years, Colette said. She kept a photograph of you on her desk, one her investigators had taken, you crossing a street near your office, carrying too many books. She said, 'That's her. She carries too many books, just like I always did.' like the women in our family always do. I thought about Patricia the librarian, about years of staying until closing, about the canvas bag of books I had taken when I left the Brannigans with my garbage bag of belongings. She was right, I said. She said she didn't deserve to know you, Colette said. But she said she was glad you existed. Every day, she was glad. I did not sell the house. I know some people would have. It would have been the rational financial decision. 480,000 euros is life-changing money in a way that a house you have never lived in may not be. But I walked through those rooms every day for 3 weeks and I thought about Marguerite sitting in that reading chair for decades, alone with her accounting. I thought about Sylvie at 19 making her mistakes in good faith. I thought about Karim, who I will likely never meet, playing oud near the port with warm eyes and a complicated life. I thought about a woman named Celeste who died 40 years before I was born and gave me her name through her granddaughter's stubbornness. I thought about Patricia the librarian and her post-it notes. About the book open at page 73 on Marguerite's side table. About Louis ignoring me from the windowsill in my apartment. And I thought about Carol Brannigan handing me a garbage bag and saying the arrangement was over. I do not hate Carol Brannigan. She was a person operating within a system that had taught her a specific definition of what children in her care deserved. What I know is this: the arrangement was not all I was. It was the container I was placed in. It was not me. I moved to Lyon in September 2025. My apartment there is on the 3rd floor of a building 6 blocks from Marguerite's house. I lease the house to a family, a couple with 2 young daughters and a dog that barks at the pigeons in the window boxes. I check on the flowers when the daughter's grandmother is not available to do it. I work remotely now, consulting with international nonprofits on youth welfare policy, which is the version of my original work that a second language and a French address have made possible. Sylvie and I have coffee every Sunday. We are not what we would have been if none of this had happened. We are something else, something built from the truth of what did happen, which is sturdier in its way, if less simple. I have not found Karim. I have thought about it. I may yet look. I have a grandmother's library and a great-great-grandmother's name, and a neighbor named Colette who argues with bakeries and tells me things about the women in my family. I have a cat named Louis who made the transatlantic journey with remarkable composure and now ignores me from a French windowsill instead of an American one. I have a mother who is alive and sorry and trying. I have a key to a house that knew my name before I arrived. I want to say something to anyone watching who came up the way I came up. Being temporary somewhere is not the same as being nobody. The system that moved you around was not seeing you clearly. The people who could not claim you were limited in ways that had nothing to do with your worth. You were not a difficult child. You were a child in a difficult situation. There is a difference that matters enormously and that I needed someone to say to me explicitly, so I am saying it to you now. The people who loved you quietly from a distance, and there may be some, even if you do not know them yet, were not absent because you were not worth showing up for. They were absent because they were afraid, or broken, or operating inside systems that punished the kind of love you needed. That is not your fault. It is also not the whole story. The letter came when I was 29. It could have come earlier. It could have come never. What I know is that I built something real in the years before it arrived, and that what arrived did not replace what I had built. It added to it, like a room you didn't know your house had, that has always been there, that you just hadn't found the door to yet. I carried too many books. My grandmother saw it from a photograph and recognized herself. Women in this family always do. I am one of those women. That is not a small thing. That is everything. My name is Celeste Moreau. I'm 29 years old. I was born in Marseille on March 3, 1996, and I was named after a woman who died before my mother was old enough to know her, a woman in a village in the Auvergne whose name traveled forward through generations to land on me. I spent 11 years being told I was a temporary arrangement. I have a house in Lyon with flower boxes and a library and a reading chair with a worn patch on the armrest. I have a mother who says my name the way she said it at a school gate when I was 7, when she was memorizing me. I have never been nobody. I just didn't know where the evidence was kept. Now I do.